Assalamualaikum and hi to Dr. Nurhaslinda. So today I'm going to present about the research on statistical paper that I have chosen for this assignment 1. So this is the article journal that I have chosen entitled School Bullying is Positively Associated with Support for Redistribution in Adulthood. So basically, this research paper used statistical measure or method in order to interpret the data that have been collected and for making conclusion from the results. So this paper only have one author, which is Atsushi Yamagishi from Department of Economics, Princeton University, United States. So this is the preview on what I'm going to present today. So the first one, I'm going to explain a little bit about the introduction for this study, and I'm going to state the problem statements, the objectives, and the literature reviews. And then I'm going to explain a little bit about the method that the researcher have been used in order to obtain the data and interpret the data, and we'll also discuss about the results and conclusion and some references. So for the introduction, we know that people have heterogeneous preference for redistribution, meaning that we have diverse interests or opinion regarding on our political preference. When we know that like redistribution in wealthy or transfer of income, like charity, divorce, or taxation is an economic model or economic issues, but this variation of interest or preference for this redistribution does not clarified by the economic issues. So we are going to use the regression model in order to interpret our claims and our data. So this regression analysis will help to describe the relationship among the variables so that we can know either our claims is true or not. So next is the problem statements. We know that some people tend to criticize other people's political preferences, but they do it without concerning about the reason on why the other people or the reason for the other people political preferences. So this study will help us in to understand better about the other people life, which then we can relate it to the other people choice for their political preference. And we also know that bullying experience will give a long-term effect to the victims and affect their lifestyle and thinking in the future. So we want to know either this bullying experience will affect the victims later on their political preference in their adulthood. So next is the objectives. The study have two objectives, which are the first one is to study the relationship between school bullying and the support of redistribution and adulthood, and the second one is to examine whether socioeconomic, psychological, and other misfortunes have any positive association with redistribution. So we want to know either these three factors will give the same impact on how the school bullying will give the impact for distribution in the adulthood. Next is the literature review. The Cantoni et al. 2017 states that the effect of school bullying on political preference is a new potential impact on school bullying. More broadly, it has been shown that school experiences can influence political preference of students in the future. Um, so it states that the school experience, which the school bullying is also one of the school experience. So it strengthened the researcher claims, which state that school bullying will influence or give a positive impact on the support for the redistribution in adulthood. And next, Brown and Taylor 2008 also mentions that people who have experience on being bullied at school will give a negative impact on their socio-economic status in adulthood, which enhance their support for the distribution, which this statement related with our second objectives, but will be explained later in the next slide. So the next one is for the methods that the researcher use for this study. So the first one is the data, where on how the researcher obtained the data. So the data obtained was from the Japanese Life Course Panel Survey, or JLPS. So this survey consists of the respondent from the Japanese residents from age 20 to 40, and the sample size, which is the N, is equal to 4,345 after deleting some samples with missing responses. So this survey have many variables such as political opinions, psychological and socio-economic, and self-reported school bullying. But for this study, we only focus on the 2007 data, which is from the wave 1, since the self-reported school bullying was only asked during 2007. Then, the experience of being bullied was only measured in reflection rather than contemporaneously, where the stage in life where the school bullying happened is not being considered. And this survey also used the 5-point Likert scale to obtain the answer or response from the respondent, which are agree, somewhat agree, neutral, somewhat disagree, and disagree. So the next one is for the second method, which is the regression analysis. This regression analysis is used in order to control for the various factors. The linear regression model is redistribution I equals to beta bullet I plus delta xi plus epsilon I. I is referred to the individual or the respondent, and the beta is the effect of the school bullying on the probability of supporting redistribution, which is our parameter of interest. And next is bullied, which is a dummy on whether the person is being bullied at school or not. And the next one is the xi, which is the control variables, including the constant term, and the epsilon I refer to the error term. So the dependent variable, which is the redistribution I, was a dummy, which will equal to 1 if the individual I agree, and 0 if otherwise. So next is the results and the conclusion. So for the results, we have two types of results, which is the first one is the descriptive evidence. For the descriptive evidence, it shows that only small fraction of the respondent expressed objection either for the bullied or the non-bullied. But bullied people are more likely to express clear support, which can we see it has been stated that the bullied people take around 23%, and the non-bullied only 17.8%. So we can conclude that there are 1.3% of bullied people more likely to give positive support for the redistribution in the future or in adulthood. So the next results is from the regression analysis, where this regression analysis will divide it into 4 data, where each data will control a specific variable of factors. So it's also divided into two, which is the baseline regression and the socio-economic control. So next is for the first one, which is the baseline regression, is for the first data. The first data is the researcher run the simple regression model without any control, meaning that it only concerning about the experience of school bullying. So the experience of being bullied at school associated with coefficient value of 7.23 and the R squared value of 0.004. So this estimate, we can say that it is significant and come from the descriptive evidence, which says that the bullied people are more likely to give positive support on the redistribution in adulthood. So the next is the socio-economic control, which for the second, third, and the fourth data. For the second data, where we control the socio-economic, such as the gender, age, marital status, and household income, and many more. So the coefficient, it results in giving us the coefficient value of 7.16, which is only 0.0007 less than the first data, and the R square value is 0.042, which is essentially the same like the first data. So despite the rich set of control for the socioeconomic, the coefficient are remarkably stable. So we can say that the socioeconomic does not give that much great impact on the support for the redistribution. So in the third data, we also control the psychological. So surprisingly, we got that the coefficient value is 5.5, which is much more smaller than the first and the second data, and the R square is equal to 0.211, which is greatly increased compared to the previous data. But there are 76% of the psychological effects are left unidentified. So we can say that this psychological variable also unable to explain the support for the redistribution, unable to give positive evidence. And for the first data is where we control the other misfortune, but the coefficient, the R square value are also not much different as the third data. So we can conclude that for all these factors, which is the school bullying, the socioeconomic, the psychological, then other misfortune, the school bullying give greater impact on the respondent support for the redistribution in the future. So to conclude, the self-reported experience of being bullied at school has a strong positive association with the support for redistribution in adulthood. And the other factors that have been mentioned before, which are the socioeconomic, psychological, and other misfortune, only play limited role for the political preference. So it gives strong support that the researcher claims are correct, which the school bullying gives positive support on the redistribution in adulthood. And also this disentangle helps in understanding how the variety of political preference form in the people's life. So this is the references for this study. There are 5 of them. There are some of them. Okay, this is the references. So that's all from me. Thank you.